All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Florida State. Is this the year that Florida State makes the playoffs again for the first time since 2014? Let's go ahead and go into our reasons for optimism. Biggest reason for optimism is that this is the best Florida State team in over a decade. They killed the transfer portal. They have tons of talent coming back. You have to start off with Jordan Travis, a dynamic quarterback. He has his receiver, number one target, Johnny Wilson, coming back, the 6'7", Madden created looking receiver. He looks like old school Brian Finneran to all my Madden players that used to play with the Falcons and Michael Vick. They be just throwing it up and he's just jumping over people catching it. They got arguably the best receiver after Singer in the transfer portal, and Keon Coleman from Michigan State, which I think was a big get for them. On the defensive side of the ball, they brought in the guy who I thought was the best pass rusher in college football last year, Jared Verse, who was probably going to be a top 10 pick. He decided to come back. You pair him with the ACC Rookie of the Year, Patrick Payton on the other end. I think they're going to have an explosive, dynamic pass rush. And again, they completely killed it in the transfer portal on their offensive line and their secondary. This is a team that's just ready to go. The reason for concern would be their lack of margin for error. Now, because this is the first time that they're going to be truly in contention since 2014, I think that they're probably not going to have the leeway to lose two games. This is probably going to be maybe a one-loss team, if they're trying to make the playoffs, with as many teams that are playoff worthy this year. So if you look at their schedule, they start the season off with LSU, a game that they won last year. But if you watch the game, you saw the LSU fumbled multiple punts, lost their best defensive starter in the first quarter. This is not a game that you can really hang your hat on and say, hey, Florida State was the better team. LSU returns one of the best rosters, if not the best, in my personal opinion, it's the best roster in college football from top to bottom. So this is going to be a hell of a game. And this is going to be a game where both teams are going to understand the importance of it, especially for LSU, because they have this tough in-conference schedule. So that's going to be a game to definitely watch for. That's an opening week of college football. I'm going to have my popcorn ready for that one. They play Clemson at Clemson. Clemson was not the Clemson of old last year, and they still beat Florida State. And Florida State had a really good season last year, so that has to be a concern. Clemson's going to go with the better quarterback in Cade Klubenik. They also are going with the new offensive system. They had a stale offense there, and the hope is that Garrett Riley, 33-year-old Garrett Riley, can come in and, put some juice back into that offense. So that's going to be a game that there's going to be a lot of concern. Clemson returns one of their best defenses in football. Greg Cosell, a guy who I really trust, said that Clemson has about 9 starters that are NFL caliber. So that's going to be a really tough game as well. So if you look at things from a bird eye view, the thing that Florida State does have going for them now is that they've gotten rid of divisions in the ACC conference. So no more Coastal and all the other nonsense. It's only the teams with the best 2 records that make the championship game. So, the Big Ten still has divisions. SEC still has divisions. Pac-12 still has divisions. So this type of advantage will give them the opportunity to, hey, maybe stumble versus a Clemson and still get into the championship game, maybe avenge that loss to Clemson if it's Clemson or if it's North Carolina, and still have a great resume to throw at the college football committee. Okay, prediction time. I think that they're probably going to lose both games to LSU and Clemson, the big matchup games that I mentioned earlier. Mike Norvell, I think he would probably be at a coaching disadvantage to Brian Kelly and to Dabo Swinney. But, they have the roster and the talent that they could easily win those games as well. I don't feel comfortable saying they're going to lose those 2 games. So if I had to predict, I would say they lose those 2 games. They're in the ACC championship with an outside chance of making the playoffs. But I wouldn't be surprised if they run the table. This team is that good. They cleaned up in the transfer portal. They're returning a dynamic quarterback with his favorite weapon. There's a lot to like in Florida State, and I would not be surprised if they made the college football playoffs. All right, let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and as always, the game is the game.